Okay, so you want to know how I was almost killed in Phantom?
Sure.
I was standing back just a little bit too far. It comes down and all of the crew guys were having a breakdown. They're like, "Are you all right? Oh my God." Like, and everybody came off stage and went, "You realize you could have died there."
This week's episode is a very special Mother's Day episode. The reason why is because our guest is my mom, Marcy DeGonge Manfredi. She is a Broadway actress and a vocal coach who was in the national tour of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, the international tour of West Side Story, and the Broadway productions of both Cats and The Phantom of the Opera. Please give a very warm welcome to my mom, Marcy DeGonge Manfredi. Hi, Mom.
Hello, son.
All right, lady. So let's get into it. So What was the initial inspiration for you? What made you want to even pursue a career in musical theater in the first place?
Yeah. I was really actually very shy as a kid. And it turns out my piano teacher discovered that I was a singer. And he had me sing something one day and he said, "You know, you actually have a voice." I said, "I do?" He said, "Yeah." And I think I was like 13 at that point.
Oh, wow.
And he brought my mom in and she listened and he said, "You know, she really has something here." So we did. So I pursued voice lessons and all of a sudden it was kind of like this wave brought me into music, because once I got into the groove of it and I was in college, my sights were on Broadway and that was it. I mean, singing a lot of other kinds of things and singing clubs, you know, I kind of did it all, but Broadway was my focus. And everything I did was to get there. That's what I wanted to do, and prepared and took classes and took a lot of dance classes and vocal classes and audition preparation classes. And I remember somebody saying to me, "You know, you really want to be on Broadway?" I was like, "Yeah. Where else do I belong?" Right. And they were like, "Yeah, but it's so hard. And if, you know, not everybody gets there. It's like a select group of people who get to Broadway." And I said, "Well, you know, you're exactly right. So I would advise you to tell that to every actor you know and see if you can convince them to not make the journey, because I'm going ahead." You know? So anyway, but it's just, you know, it's what I wanted to do. And eventually I got there, you know? I always laugh because people would go, "Oh, wow, how great you were on Broadway, how glamorous." And I'm like, it's a lot of work. You know, singers are athletes. There's no two ways about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, singers, dancers, you have to be physically able to sustain to do 8 shows a week, never mind having costumes on and makeup that, you know.
You've said before, like, you know, during that time you were working out all the time.
Oh, all the time.
Because you needed to be in top shape.
Oh, yeah.
To do the show.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Cats.
Well, when I did Cats, I'd get up in the morning. I would go to the gym for a couple of hours. You know, then I would come home and I would teach. And then I would go do the show at night. So I was like a machine, you know, at that point. But I was, you know, in my, 20s, you know, early 30s. And, you know, that's what we did.
How did you get to Broadway after you had gone out after college? You were auditioning, and then what was like the first kind of big break that you got?
So ironically, so I graduated from college and I was actually living with my grandmother, and she said, "Hey, there's this place called the Three Penny Playhouse and they're doing Kismet and you should go audition for it." So I went and I got Kismet. I played La Lume in Kismet in that production. And
what an ironic title of a show to get as your first show.
Kismet. It was. And it totally was, right?
Yeah.
After that, I went to do a production of Sugar in Westchester, and I played the role of Sugar.
Right. And Sugar
is Some Like It Hot.
Some Like It Hot.
Right. With Marilyn Monroe. So the musical, it's the musical of Some Like It Hot called Sugar.
Yeah.
And while I was there.
And you played the Marilyn Monroe.
I played the Marilyn Monroe part. Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yes, I played Sugar. And while I was there, I got a phone call from the director of Kismet. And he said, so here's the thing, though. He said, it's an equity contract. So you need to go get your equity card.
So that's how you got your
That's
equity
how
card.
I got my equity card. The first show I got paid for was my equity card. I literally was out of college. I guess I
Right.
graduated in May, and like 6 months later, I got my equity card.
Right.
So,
And actors equity. So what's the distinction? Once you get an actors equity card,
Okay.
what does that now allow you to do?
Right. So Actors Equity is the actors union. And so once you become a member of that union, besides paying dues yearly, you are covered by contracts. So every production you do is a different kind of contract. Broadway shows are production contracts.
So to be in a Broadway show, you need to be equity.
You have to be.
Right. You
yeah.
need to be
right.
be part of that union.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Once you got your equity card,
yeah.
What did you do with that newfound power? Did you go out and audition?
I did. First show I got after that was Grease.
Oh, right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So that was at North Stage Theater on Long Island. And the Broadway show of Grease had just closed. So it was a lot of the cast members from Grease came out.
Yeah.
And I was the female swing. So a swing is the hardest job you will ever have as an actor. I think everybody should do it. I had to memorize all of the girls' roles in Grease, including Miss Lynch, the school teacher. So there were times that there was a scene that was the cafeteria scene. And that's when everybody is at the table and it's very fast talking and they're throwing food at each other. So I just memorized the whole table.
Right.
So there were times that I would be one character at the matinee and I'd be another character at the evening performance.
So you'd be...
I could be like Frenchie during the matinee and Sandy at night, you know? So, and I played pretty much everybody at one point or another.
Yeah.
But it's great because you have to memorize all those tracks. You have to know entrances, you got to know all of those things.
Yeah, it must be an amazing memory exercise.
It
to
really
learn
is.
The entire
it is.
scene.
It is. And it just makes you really be on your toes about everything, you know? So it was a wonderful experience and made great friends. And I'm still friends with those people. And that's something else that I really love about theater is that my dearest friends, for the most part, are from theater.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in the trenches with those people for so long because you're rehearsing for sometimes weeks, months, and then you're doing the shows. Same thing. Weeks, months, years.
That's right. You do become family. You definitely do. So Grease, and then after that, I did the first national tour of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Okay, so you went from that to Joseph.
Yeah, and I did Joseph for about a year and a half on the road.
And what did you do in Joseph?
I was in Joseph. I was actually an ensemble member. I was one of the girls. We had one of the Egyptian girls. So that was kind of my first big show, ensemble show. It was exciting to go on tour and go from one town to the next.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in San Francisco, I actually saw Robin Williams in person.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It was so amazing because we were super close to him.
Yeah.
And he was like so amazing, but like out of control.
Oh, yeah.
He probably was coked, everything else. I don't know.
This is Mark and Mindy Robin Williams?
Yes. Yeah. And I remember he had on like these leather pants and like a Hawaiian shirt. And he was sweating profusely and he was like moving around. And he must have grabbed his crotch like 600 times, but he was like so brilliant. And we were like, it was just like after seeing him, we were exhausted. Like you're exhausted because he's hitting you with one thing after another.
And go over here and then.
All that. But really, it's just to witness that brilliance was like I'd never experienced anything like that before,
Yeah.
but I feel so fortunate to have actually seen him
Yeah,
live
that's
like
so
that,
cool.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, and that was the beginning of your travels
Travels,
as a
yeah.
performer. So you did Joseph, and then
Mhm.
at what point did you do West Side Story?
I did the, first national tour of Joseph, and after Joseph, I actually did West Side Story, uh, and Grease at Kansas City Starlight Theater because our director of Grease at North Stage
Mhm.
was doing those productions and cast me in those.
Okay.
So I was in West Side there, and then our choreographer, his name was Jay Norman. He was absolutely brilliant. He was in the original company of West Side Story on Broadway and also in the film. He was an
Oh, wow.
amazing, amazing man. So he was directing the international tour, and he asked me to do Maria in the international tour. So that's how I kind of went.
After the international tour of West Side
Yeah.
Story. So wait,
Yeah.
the international tour of West Side Story.
Yeah.
So you got cast as Maria.
Yeah. Maria.
So you were Maria in West Side Story
Yes.
internationally.
Yes.
What was it like playing that part and singing those
It
songs?
was absolutely fantastic. I would probably say I've done a lot of shows that are my heart, but I have to say, I think West Side is really the one for me. The music is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
You don't even have to see the show. You could just listen to the score. It's just so
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
like
It's
otherworldly because it's
beautiful.
something that I think is just it's in our culture more than most musicals
Yeah.
are, and I think people don't even know that they know the songs till they hear it.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's one of
Yeah.
those shows.
Also, it was so well written
Mhm.
and so singable.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I loved everything about that
Well, and
part.
it's Leonard Bernstein
Yes.
and Stephen Sondheim,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it was like one
Oh,
of the
yeah.
first times Stephen
And the
Sondheim wrote.
choreography was, Jerome Robbins' choreography and all the original movie choreography and the Broadway show. And it was just so exciting. I even got to do an interview in France with George Chakiris. George Chakiris was Bernardo in the movie.
Wow.
And he was a big star in France. And so we did a show together. We did a radio show together.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was so exciting. I mean, I really was starstruck, I have to say, So he was wonderful. And
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And we did that along the way,
Like publicity things, you mean?
Yeah, publicity things along the way
Like,
and
we're
interviews.
in town. Here we are.
Exactly. Exactly.
You worked with Greg Brady.
Oh, yes.
You worked with
Right.
Barry Gibb.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Exactly. When I did West Side Story in Kansas City, Barry Williams, Greg Brady was Tony. Yeah.
And you were Maria? No, not in that one.
In that production,
Oh.
that was one in Kansas City. That's before I did the international tour. That production, I was Rosalia. So I sang, Puerto Rico, you lovely island, right? I sang that, and I was a shark girl.
Yes.
So I did America and danced that whole dance. And then I was the Somewhere singer. So when they did the Somewhere ballet, I sang, there's a place for us. So I was like off stage and I sang that.
Oh.
Yeah. So I did that there. I was
And
Maria.
then Maria sings it too in the show, right? At one point?
No.
Or does she not sing it?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. She does. She
Yeah.
sings it at the end when Tony is dying.
So
Yeah.
the first time you did West Side, you sang Somewhere. And when you did the national tour, you sang Somewhere because you were the
both
offstage
times.
singer and then you were
That's
Maria.
right. Yeah. So actually the way it kind of went was I did, so the first production I was Rosalia and I was the Somewhere singer and a shark. So I got to do America. And then I did the international tours, Maria. And then in the opera company at Skylight Opera, I did Maria again there. Yeah.
There's a place for us Somewhere a place for us.
Hold my hand,
and we're halfway there. Hold my hand, and I'll take you there.
Go ahead.
Somewhere, somehow. I think it's the other way, isn't it? I think it's somehow, someday. What's the order?
Somehow, someday.
Is it somewhere, someday?
Somewhere. Which is the name of the song?
Somehow, someday,
somewhere.
Somehow, someday, somewhere.
Aww.
That was nice.
Nice. Aw. That was sweet. Thank you.
I love that song.
I love that song. Yeah.
So you came back, and did you then start auditioning again now that you were settled back on the East Coast?
Yeah.
Did you then start auditioning for Broadway again?
I did actually, though. I left after my 6 months, I left the international tour of West Side to come and do a production of Side by Side by Sondheim. I just love Sondheim so much, and it was like I really wanted that opportunity.
I like Sondheim because you like Sondheim.
I know. Yeah. And after that, I guess I just was, auditioning for different things and doing productions, lots of regional productions along the way. Cats came up because actually a friend of mine was in the show that I had done Joseph with. And she was in Cats, and she was leaving to go do Les Miserables. And she recommended me as her replacement, which was really wonderful.
It's really good to know people.
It really is.
Over and over
yes,
again.
Yes. I went in and auditioned, and I sang on the stage at the Winter Garden. I sang and danced. They had me do the choreography. And I didn't get a call back. They just hired me the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I got a phone call saying, hi, we would love you to join our cast of Cats. I was like, it was surreal. I was just like, what? And it was only supposed to be for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And I was there for 3 years.
Wow.
When you're there and I got that call, I went, oh my God, now this is the ultimate. This is the gold ring. I got the brass ring, right? And what went through my head was a couple of things like, well, I guess I'm good enough to do this. But then I had that feeling of like, wow, I have a lot to live up to because this is the cream of the crop, And I got there and I was in rehearsals and it was daunting. Also in rehearsals for Cats, you're rehearsing with people who don't have cat makeup on. And so,
just a bunch of humans.
Right. Right. Exactly.
For hands. Yes.
So I was watching the show, right? So you watch the show every night and you know who the characters are. And then I'm in rehearsal the next day, like put in rehearsals to go in the show. And I'm like, who are you? And they're like, oh, I'm Bomb Ballerina, and I'm so-and-so.
I'm the white cat.
I'm the white cat, right. And so, because I had to actually, knew who they were with the makeup on and all that, You have to go through kind of like cat school, So you have to have your hands a certain way, and you can't meow. There's no meowing, right? There are hisses here and there, but there's no meow. You have to have a certain posture. Your hands have to be a certain way. You always have to be like in a kind of low position, a low hovering position.
Right.
You can't have any part of you be human ever.
Yeah.
Anything
your back always has to be bent.
Everything that you do, your knees, everything you have to preen. If you have an itch and you're on stage, you can't be like, you have to do it like a cat. Yeah. Then now you put costumes on and you're transforming into a cat. And one of the biggest things, which was so much fun, was learning how to work your tail. And it was a thing.
Yeah.
You had to be able to throw your tail a certain way so it looked like it was on its own doing things,
Yeah.
right?
You were animating.
I was animating.
You were animating your tail.
There's a place for me here. Yeah. So, so you're acting and you have to embody a cat. The way you lay on the ground, one of the parts I played was the opera cat, and she was a white cat, and she had a very big fluffy tail, and I would lay there and I would make my tail go up and down and back and forth, as part of the personality of the character.
And then the other part that you played.
Yeah.
You played a few parts.
Well, I played Jelly Lorm Grittlebone. There's an old cat called Gus, and she is kind of like his nurse. Right. Like his aide.
Yeah. Gus.
Yeah.
Being
Gus.
Your
and
song
Gus
in
also
Cats.
reminded me of my grandfather so much. Gus, he goes back in his memory of when he was this famous actor.
Right.
And he has palsy and he has a shake in his hand.
Right.
And actually she sings about that in the
Gus is the cat.
Yes.
At the theater door.
Yeah. Beautiful. But my grandfather had the same thing. And my grandfather he passed away at almost 101.
Right.
And he was such a study for me because I adored him. And he was like this gentle Italian grandfather, and he'd tell stories. And when he would tell stories, his hand would shake. So he was my Gus. So I really, when I did that song with him, I pictured my grandfather. That's who I sang it to. So it was a really special moment there. Anyway, she becomes, when he has a flashback, it flashes back and he's on a pirate ship, and then I become the heroine on the pirate ship, and I turn from a regular yellow cat into this big diva cat with
big white
fluffy
cat,
and fluffy, and long pink nails. It was great. It was fantastic. I did that cat, and then you
had to jump off of the boat at the end.
I jumped off of the boat at the end. Yes,
8 times a week.
Yes, and then the funny thing is, my first night on in Cats, I fractured my foot. So, and finished the show.
And how did you fracture your foot?
I was doing the ball in the first act.
The jellicle ball. Yes.
Right. Quite honestly, if you don't know your pattern, you are trampled, because it's a lot of jumping and leaping, and it's in a swirl.
Right.
So you're going in a circle and people are jumping off from that. I was dancing in the beginning of it.
Right.
And then there's another section that changes and I'm exiting off stage.
Bum, 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 bum,
Ba-
bum,
ba- 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 ba-
Jellicle.
You've never seen that show, have
No, I've
you?
never seen it. What is it? What's Cats about?
Yeah. Cats. What's Cats about? For those people who don't know, it is one day.
You don't have to, but you can. Yeah.
Well, it is. It's one day in the life of cats, and one cat is being chosen to go on to have another life, to go onto the heavy side layer, which is cat heaven. Yeah. So you meet all the cats, and so you meet Gus,
and they're all auditioning basically to get a new life.
Basically, that's what it is. Yeah. Right. They're trying to do all that. Yeah, so that was Jelly Lorm Grittlebone. And then the other part I played was Jenny Anydots, who was completely different.
Yes.
Who was the tap dance cat.
But you played the opera singing cat.
The opera singing cat.
And the tap dance
And the tap dance cat. Yeah. Oh, wait, you asked me about how I broke my foot.
Oh, how did you break your
foot? How I fractured my foot, right? So the swirl is happening and I jump off stage. And actually there was a car on stage, always the car. And there were tires, and there was a well around the tire. And I went to leap off stage and my left foot went down into the well. And I fractured my foot, and I jumped out knowing that I did something. And then I had to leap off through an oil drum. So I went off stage and I knew I did something really bad. And I just reached into a vat of Advil and kind of went on. And, people are going, "Are you okay?" I said, "I have no idea. I'm going to keep going. This is my debut and I'm just going to keep going."
Wow.
So I didn't know what I did, but I knew I did something. So I didn't feel that pain while I did the show. I wouldn't let myself do it. So I kept doing it. And then it was intermission and I iced it and everything. And then second act was my song.
Yeah.
So now I have a fractured foot and I
You
do
did
the
that same
I
night?
did the whole thing. I sang Gus the Theater Cat. He goes back and does his memory on the
Yeah.
ship as, fighting the pirates. And we do our thing and we sing an Italian aria together. And I jump off the ship. And I know I saw stars, but I was like, that's it, And so I finished the
Oh
show.
my gosh.
And once I came off stage, I felt excruciating pain.
Oof.
And my foot was swollen. And I was like, I think I need to go to the hospital. And so actually the people that came to the show that night was one of my students and her family, and her father was a doctor.
Yeah.
And he put me in his car and brought me to the ER. And I was on crutches for 6 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to do one show.
Yeah. Then
You
I
got
was
to do
6
your
weeks.
Broadway debut,
Mhm.
and then 6
Then
weeks.
it was 6 weeks. Yeah. But I was determined. It was like, you kidding me? This is what I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to feel this pain till after, that's just the way it is.
Till the next 6 weeks.
Well, very much like an athlete's mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They just keep going. You keep going and
The
you
show
feel it
must go
after.
on.
Yeah. So luckily they had me sing in the booth. And because everybody sings on stage and dances on stage, but because it was grueling just to fill out the sound, there were 4 singers doing all 4 parts
Wow.
up there.
Oh, perfect.
It
So you
was
did
great.
get to work.
Yeah,
You still got to
I did.
work in the
I was in
show.
the booth. Yeah.
And use
Which
your
was so
voice.
much fun.
Yeah.
I had to hobble up there on crutches and then, and then once I was, that was done, then I was able to go back into the show.
Yeah.
And then the other part I played was Jenny Anydots,
Mhm.
who is a tap dance cat. So
Right after your fractured
Yeah.
foot. Yeah.
Jenny Anydots is like the grandma cat. She
Right.
knits and she takes care of the little mice and everything else. That was a whole different ball game because she had layers of clothes.
Yeah.
So when I did Jelly Lorem, I had to put on the white outfit and this, but Jenny Anydots had our regular costume. She was all orange. And then on top of that went shimmery fringe outfit.
Right. Like a flappery
Flappery fringe
Yeah. Mhm.
outfit. On top of that went a big giant fur coat. So on my feet, I had the regular shoes, my tap shoes, and over the tap shoes were knitted socks. I had a hat. I had gloves. So all of that had to come off in the course of the dance number.
Mm.
I come out of the car that was on stage, the trunk opens,
Yeah.
and she'd come out tapping, and the number would start, and the mice came over and pulled off each knitted boot,
Mm-hmm.
gloves, hat, coat, throw the coat, and come up like Ann Miller tapping down in the fringed
Right.
outfit. And did the whole number in that.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. And then as soon as the tap number was over, I would go off stage and just collapse in the chair. I would just like throw myself in the chair and people would be like taking things off. Literally, it was like being shot out of a cannon,
Yeah.
only with 3 layers of clothes on and having to do a big number with all this.
Yeah.
So to me, I was probably the hardest thing, quite honestly. And to tap, to be able to, have to
Yeah.
be down center and do a tap number. So yeah.
And then after that, you had a little hiatus after Cats.
Yeah.
Because
name was Nicholas Manfredi.
Mhm.
So of course I left Cats and spent my time with you. And strangely enough, during Cats, I was asked to audition for Phantom because they were looking for a Carlotta. And my musical director, wonderful musical director, Jack Gaughan, he was on Cats and also on Phantom. And he wanted to bring me in. And so I was like, great. This is while I was doing Cats. I ended up getting strep throat So I couldn't audition. And I am like, I'm going to my ninth month pregnant with you. And I remember I was doing a concert in an art gallery, and I was huge, you know. And about a day or two after that, I get a phone call from the casting directors, also Johnson Lift Casting, same people that cast me in Cats. And they're like, we'd like you to come in to audition for Carlotta. And I just laughed on the phone. I said, I'm going to have a baby. I'm like 9 months pregnant right
Yeah.
now. They were like, oh, well, would you be interested after you have the baby? I'm like, okay. I'm thinking to myself, again, who, you can't get arrested, but
Right.
get pregnant and people want you to come
Yeah,
in,
oh,
right?
yeah, always.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, is that all I had to do? Because that was easy,
Yeah.
you know? So I had you, and that was it. And you were 6 months old. And they had me come in to audition. And I was like, oh my God. I thought, this is the worst possible time. I am nursing a child.
Yeah.
I just had a baby. My weight's not what, like, all things were like, really? Really and truly, this is when I'm going to go in to do this. And again, it was easy.
We talked about in Cats, you
Yeah.
had an injury during your time there. And then when
Yeah.
you were in Phantom,
Oh yeah.
you've
I was almost killed.
Yeah. Well,
I took that very lightly, didn't I? The way I just said that. Okay, so you want to know how I was almost killed in Phantom?
Sure.
Okay. So Carlotta is on stage, and she pretty much is in a huff because the managers want to replace her with Christine.
Yeah.
And she's the diva of the opera house. And she's just not having it, and she pretty much tells them off. And I had this fantastic costume with a big fur boa. And, you leave stage, and I'm speaking to Piangi is with me, who is my partner in crime at the opera house. He is the lead tenor and I'm the prima donna. And I say to him, Ubaldo, andiamo. And I throw my thing. And as I'm back there, the scrim is supposed to fall behind because
Right.
that is the Phantom trying to kill me.
Right.
Well, I was standing back just a little bit too far. And as the scrim came down, it hit me in the shoulder. Now,
Ow.
had it hit me like an inch forward, it would have taken me out and I would have been like my shoulder would have been broken. But what it did actually is it grazed
or worse.
or work. Killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it grazed the back of my shoulder.
Right. And the scrim is a giant barbell.
Oh,
It's like a
yeah.
giant metal barbell that pulls down the curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the scrim
Yeah,
is, it's got
horrifying.
like when you think about it, it's almost like a scroll, a giant scroll, right? So a bar on the top,
Yeah.
bar on the bottom.
Right.
And the scrim is like, it's painted, whatever
Yeah.
the scene is on there, So just before I leave, and I make my exit, it comes down and it's the Phantom. Everybody freaks out because it's a Phantom trying to kill me. And I throw my thing and I go off stage, and I really didn't, I could feel like something, like I was hit. It wasn't excruciating. All of the crew guys were having a breakdown. They're like, are you all right? Oh my God. And everybody came off stage and went, you realize you could have died there.
Yeah.
So I guess I was off my mark just enough.
Just slightly. Yeah.
Just enough to almost be,
Yikes.
taken out.
I-
But I wasn't.
I bet you would never miss that mark again.
Never again. Never again. But in that light, what I wanted to say, which a lot of people don't know, is backstage, all the set pieces and everything were all lifted into the sky, which you saw when you
Yes.
came on a tour, right?
Yeah.
There's an elephant at the beginning.
Yep.
The elephant
That's
is up.
all I remember
like,
when I was
right.
a little kid,
So
is looking up at a giant
It's
elephant.
amazing. It was the Majestic is a huge theater, so there's a lot of space, but everything after it's done in a scene is lifted,
Mhm.
right? whatever you're blocking in your choreography is on stage, off stage has to be precise as well, meaning your quick changes when you're going. Now, Phantom underneath the stage had all the hydraulics going under there. So they had all the stuff, the boat, the candles, all those things that had to come up. Everything is perfectly timed in that show.
Yeah.
So when I had to change, I had to be at a specific place at a specific time. So if you are going somewhere and you forgot something, you kind of can't,
Right.
because you will do a crossover, something will come down, hydraulics will go up. You're downstairs, you're either behind the stage or you're going down into the basement, and you're having to go through all of that stuff. Meanwhile, you got crew guys moving things, dropping sandbags, doing all of these things. And if you don't have your choreography down, you can get hurt.
Yeah.
People have gotten hurt. You get hit with a sand or a crew guy is trying to do something and you're in their way. Forget it.
Yeah.
So it's props, it's crew, all of that. And Cats was the same way. I mean, all Broadway shows are like that. You really, really have your track, and you've got to keep your track. Phantom was one, though, that was just had so much more. It just really had all that underneath stuff that you had.
A lot of
really,
big sets, a lot of,
yeah. You just really, really important to do that. And, if you get into the show a first time, you find out the hard way if you're not.
Yeah.
It's just like,
definitely.
oh man, I should not have been there.
Well, and speaking of the first time, so the first time that you went on as Carlotta,
Yeah.
for anybody who knows the show,
Phantom starts quietly at an auction.
Yes.
And they're auctioning off several things, including a monkey.
Right.
That was from the Phantom to Christine. It was the Phantom's monkey.
Right. And then bum,
Yeah.
bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
the big
Right.
Phantom, or
Yes.
score plays.
Yes. The scene lifts, the scrims go up.
Right. We
Everything
go back
changes.
in time.
Yep.
And then the first thing that happens is the orchestra goes
Stops.
and it goes quiet.
Yeah.
And then you have to walk out and pick a note out of
D
thin
flat
air.
out of thin air.
Was that the most terrifying
thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah, it stops. Literally, all of this stuff is flying, the chandelier, all these things are going, and then it dead stops. And I have to pick that note. It's not given to me.
Right.
I have to know that note. And I have a bloody head in my hand because basically this is a rehearsal,
Right. For an opera.
For an opera. And I have a big dripping bloody head in my hand, and I come out and I have to sing a cadenza, just a cappella all the way through. And then the orchestra picks up after that.
Right.
And another issue. So I'm like the queen of mishaps. So like one of my first nights out, I was ready and I was going backstage because I had to be there, for all that, for cue. And I like to get everywhere early. I had my big giant red and green skirt on.
Yeah.
And I had a corset on top. My underwear is what I had on. Well, I'm supposed to have a beaded top that goes over it. And now I'm standing there and my dresser is supposed to come, who will remain unnamed. And I am there with the head, with the big dress and my underwear. And the music starts. And I'm looking around going, I'm going out in my underwear. I'm going out in my underwear. Yeah, I'm good. The music is going to stop. The curtain is going to open. And I'm going to be there with egg on my face in my underwear on stage.
Literally a nightmare.
Literally a nightmare. And now I'm like, oh my God. And all of a sudden I feel behind me, arm, zipped up in the back. And now I have my beaded thing on.
Oh my God.
I had like 2 measures to go.
The dresser appeared last second. Yeah.
And da-da-da-da. And then I got to find the D flat and then I sing the whole thing. So yeah, I've had some like harrowing experiences, I have to say. I mean, I loved every minute of it, but like, There's no glamour there.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no glamour in
I also always love when there was a part of the show
that.
it's the beginning of the second act,
Yeah.
and it's kind of one of the most famous parts of
Oh,
Phantom,
masquerade.
which is Masquerade,
Yeah.
which is they're doing the Halloween masquerade ball,
Right.
and you're all on these steps.
Yes.
And everybody goes, masquerade,
Yeah.
paper faces on
Yeah.
parade. Every time before the second act curtain would open, what would you have to do?
I had to go to the restroom.
So
I had to go to the restroom.
right.
And I probably was talking and whatever. And
Sure.
all of a sudden,
On the steps.
No, I wasn't on the steps
okay.
because I was in the restroom.
Okay.
And the music would start and everybody was on the steps. And I would be like running my butt off of the steps before the curtain went up to be frozen. Not, I'm not saying it happened all the time.
No.
But occasionally, I was late.
Right.
But I wasn't so late that the audience noticed.
No.
But I was so late that other people were like, where the heck were you? What were you doing? I was in the bathroom. I was always in the bathroom.
And that continues.
It continues. I have a thing about that.
So Phantom, you were in Phantom for another
almost 3 years.
3 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And while you were in Phantom, there was also a lot of people who came to see the show.
Oh, yeah.
In that time that were well-known people in the world. Was there anybody that came through that meant a lot to you?
Aretha Franklin. Who gave me her phone number in Detroit.
She gave you her phone number.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great.
So how did that?
Oh my God.
So she came back after the show?
I was backstage.
Yeah.
And my dressing room was right next to the Phantoms.
Yeah.
And she came back to see the Phantom and I was there and she congratulated me and I was in the Phantom's dressing room and just in Aretha form, like, ooh, honey, that was wonderful. I was just like, oh my God, I am meeting Aretha Franklin. I can't even. Yeah.
She's like your queen, Aretha Franklin.
Oh, queen. Yeah. I was just, and it's so funny because when people come backstage, they're weirdly starstruck to see people in a Broadway show.
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt like I couldn't even speak.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, me, you, I'm nobody. You're Aretha Franklin for crying out loud, I was like, what? Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
After Phantom.
Yes.
You started kind of going more full-time into teaching.
Yeah.
And that kind of, you had been doing that your whole career.
Yeah.
You had been teaching on the side.
Yes,
throughout.
Always. Yeah.
So what are some of the fundamentals that you try to teach your students whenever they come to you for voice lessons?
Yeah. What I try to do, so I am a vocal technician, which means I teach correct breathing and support and placement, use of vowels, diction, line of singing. But I'm also a coach in the sense, besides coaching languages, I coach the material in a way that I believe if you're singing in French, let's put it this way, if you're singing in French and you are singing it phonetically, but you don't know the translation, people are not going to buy it.
Right.
You have to know what you're singing in French.
Yeah.
Okay. The same goes for English. So if you have a piece of music and you have a character, who is the character? What was the character doing before this song? Why is this character singing this song?
Yeah.
Who is this character? What are they about? What are their feelings?
Acting.
Acting.
Yeah.
What is their want? What is their mission? Why are they? So I very thoroughly work on pieces characterization. I believe strongly if you're not attached to the text, whatever language, and interpreting the text that you're singing in, and you're not acting, you're not singing. I say acting, but I think it's more than that. I think you have to be true to the character.
Yeah.
You have to feel, you have to embody that character. And in turn, when you're singing, your voice takes on the most amazing sounds and colors driven by emotion. If you're singing a song and you're angry, it's going to show in your voice.
Yeah.
If you're, depending on what your emotion it is, and when you're doing comedy, you don't play the comedy at all. That's first and foremost, right? You play it straight and then you have the comedy, right? You don't play the laughs, you play for the laughs. So the way I feel, and I think it's because I've been a performer for over 40 years of my life, I feel that when I have a student, they need to be well-rounded when they leave my studio. So I teach them about breathing, but I also teach them in a warm-up that you have to warm up your body. Like I said, you're an athlete. I worked years as a dancer and as a singer, and we are athletes. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
You have to have endurance to do anything. Okay. So I do physical warm-ups, stretches. I do all of that first and say, when you're going to audition for something, you got to warm your whole body up because singing is a full body experience from head to toe.
Yeah.
It's not just your diaphragm. It's not just your breathing. So I will give them body exercises. Then I give them breathing exercises and all of that. And then I go on to vocal exercises that addresses range and pitch. And one of the things that's most important to me is healthy singing. Making sure that you are using your instrument in the correct way so that you will sing for the rest of your life and you won't get nodes and you won't be out and all of that. And one of the things I teach is a very smooth transition from chest to the mixed voice to the head voice. And I work very hard on that because Broadway, a lot of the times they want that belt sound. Years ago, I taught an Annie understudy on one of the revivals on Broadway. And when she first came to me, she had what I then coined as Annie throat because it was like cat's claws, right? And I was like, you can't sing like this.
Yeah.
You can't sing like this. So I said, we're going to learn for you to belt, how to mix your voice and get to a mixed belt in a healthful way that you are singing that 8 shows a week, but you are not hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to give them the sound that they want, but you are going to have a career and sing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So it was that. So working a lot with kids that age too, because I've worked with young kids, I've worked with older people, pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. Men, women, kids, all different people.
Broadway
stars,
Broadway,
right.
yeah,
Opera
debut,
people, jazz people, all of those things. But quite honestly, I feel like it's all really the same.
Yeah.
So no matter what genre I'm teaching, I feel that your vocal production has to be sound and strong. Your breath control is absolutely everything. You have to work like a machine.
Yeah.
You want your technique to work because when you set foot on stage, you don't want to think about it.
Right.
You want it to be organic.
Second nature.
And you just want to come out and live the part and live the song and enjoy what you're doing and embody the character. And it should kick in. So all of the work we do for the technique is so that you know where notes are. For me, because I've been doing this so long, I know where every note is in my body. I know where it is. And if I'm going to sing a specific note as an opera singer, I know where that sits. If I sing that same note as a belter, I know where that sits. If I'm going to mix it, I know where that sits. And so really and truly what I try to do with my students is give them kind of what I say, that toolbox of knowing exactly where things are and knowing what to fix if something isn't right. Here's my thing. If it's not easy, it's not right. So when it's easy, you're doing everything right. You're breathing, you're supporting, you're doing your diction the right way. Changing a vowel can change absolutely everything in the quality of your voice.
Yeah.
So it's when to use certain vowels, knowing that we sing vowels. Our diction comes from the consonants. Our diction, all our consonants are on the stomach muscles, diaphragm, all of that. And so unless you are breathing and supporting at the same time, you are not going to sustain that note.
Right.
So there are a lot of technical things that are done there, but always with health. first, with vocal health first.
Yeah.
I mean, my thing is I've enjoyed a long career. Knock on wood, I've never had any vocal problems. I had great teachers, particularly Harry Garland, who
Yeah.
really taught me that so simply that singing is speaking on pitch. And that's really what it is. It's sustained speech. If you have a strong technique, you can do anything. You really can do anything. You can sing theater, you can sing jazz, you just can sing opera.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting into that groove, taking your same technique and applying it to all of it, but making some changes, making stylistic changes.
Yeah.
Some of it is placement changes, those kinds of things. And then as far as auditioning, or to me, the confidence level is a big thing. So I will, if I'm working on a piece with somebody, we do all the technical things. We really, with a fine tooth comb, go over the character. And I will always say to them, I would like you, between now and the next time I see you, to pick 5 characters. And I want you to document why you've chosen those characters and how you are like those characters and how you are dissimilar and why you've chosen that. What makes you, why do you want to delve into these characters?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so they'll come back and we'll have a whole conversation. They'll write things down. And actually, you learn a lot about people because,
Right.
well, how are you like this character? Oh, I'm not like that character. I don't have that confidence. And she really has that, you know. So what's exciting about playing that? Well, I get to be somebody else. Right. So it's really a great study. And I just really learn about them that way. So when we go through music, and it's finding audition pieces, and really and truly, it's one thing, you know, we want to sound good on a piece, but it's the uniqueness. It's finding pieces that really, really speak to the singer, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
a teacher that'll be like, I will suggest all these pieces. If you don't like any of them, do not do them.
Right.
If you don't eat meat, I'm not going to make you eat meat. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like you have to connect. And if you walk into an audition and you don't connect to your piece, you are now disassociated from the whole audition.
Right.
You're not showing them who you are. You're not relaying confidence. You're not doing your best job, right? So I work very hard on that, really getting pieces that are tailor-made to each student,
Yeah.
range-wise, acting-wise, all of those things. And then once we know all that, then we audition. And I do mock auditions. And I know a lot of people, you know, I've taught a lot of audition classes. I've taught
Mhm.
college prep classes. I've taught audition classes and acting coaching one-on-one, as well as singing one-on-one. But
Master classes.
master
all that. Yeah.
classes, yeah, I've done a lot of all different colleges.
Lincoln
I've
Center. You were at
done
for-
Lincoln Center, Ithaca College,
Yeah.
Kane University,
Yeah.
you know, kind of going in and just teaching audition or vocal master classes, really
Right.
about the voice. So, you know, I that a lot of times takes place in a class, but for me, I feel like a voice lesson, that hour,
A one-on-one.
I want it to have everything.
Yeah.
So I will have them leave the studio and knock on my door and come in and do an audition. And
Yeah.
because a lot of what they deal with is audition fright,
Right.
stage fright, but there are people that can go out and perform and be fine. And then when they go into an audition, they freeze,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's all that psychological stuff. What do
Totally.
they want me to be? What should I be? And then this becomes, you're not auditioning.
Right.
When you walk into that room, you have the role. You're performing that role.
Mhm.
And I'll have people say, oh, yeah, but what if they don't see me as that role? Should I go in and audition for Grease and like just pick something that kind of goes to the show to Grease? Or should I choose the character that I want and audition for that character? I said, what do you think?
Mm.
Choose the character.
Yeah.
Because you need to invest in that character and you need to study that character
Yeah.
and you need to be that character
Be
in the audition.
specific.
Specific.
Yeah.
Because if you're not specific, they're not.
Yeah.
So you may go in and audition in Grease for Sandy. You might think, oh, that's my role. That's
Mhm.
what I want. I'm going to research Sandy. She transforms, right? From being this to
Yep.
that. I'm going to look at her character. I'm
Sandra
going to
Dee
choose a
mhm.
piece that is similar to Sandy, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to commit to it. And this has happened to students before. And they go, but I didn't get cast as Sandy. I got cast as Marty. I said, so that's their choice.
Yeah, exactly.
You went in and you committed. But if you go in and you don't commit and you're like, nah, I'm just going to sing a song from that era,
Yeah.
there's no focus. You're not showing them that you are viable for a role that
Right.
you can handle and you've done your research.
But you're just
So-
showing them that you did your homework.
Your
ultimately.
homework.
It's like I came
Yeah.
in, I did my homework.
Did my homework. And I will say to my student, you are also somebody who does that. Now they want to hire you
Yeah.
because you were on it. You did your homework. You embodied the character. You sang the crap out of the song.
Yeah.
Your acting was on point. And they think, because you need to make their lives easier. Oh, we got to hire this one because we're not going to have any issues.
Yeah.
This one, and they have to see if you're directable and you're a callback and
Yep.
all of those things. And that's what you need to do. You go in unsure, it's not going to happen.
And they're going to be unsure.
They're going to be unsure, like, where does she go? She's not really,
Yeah.
So I do that in my lessons.
Yeah.
So I make
it's
sure
a lot
that
of it's mentality.
it's all
a mental
it's
shift.
all of that.
As well as
Yeah.
placement of your voice.
All of it.
And placement is, could you describe what placement of your voice is?
A placement is where you actually, so vocal production takes place, you have your vocal cords, your voice box. And so a lot of everything takes place there, right? But it's where your voice resonates and where you actually focus your voice so that it comes out most efficiently out of your body to an audience and gets to each audience member. So you kind of want to sing very focused and like a laser beam when you're auditioning. So placement takes place in what is called the mask. So the mask in your face is your eyes, your cheeks, all of this part.
Yeah.
And behind your nose, the inner workings, of course, where your voice is, you have the roof of your mouth, which is the soft palate. You go a little farther forward, it's the hard palate and your teeth, and it's where things sit in your voice. So if you're singing something lush and lifted, you're really singing in the soft palate. If you're going to sing a pianissimo, there's a focus of that, how you lift your voice a little higher into a little smaller place. If you're mixing your voice, you're going a little bit farther into the front. When you're belting, one of the toughest things about belting and teaching that, particularly to young students, because they like the sound of their voice loud. Yeah. Okay. But you got to support. So belting doesn't come from the throat. It comes from the focus in the front. So it's a lot of like, say if you're singing behind the hinge of your face, you're too far back and you're going to go in your throat. So you want everything to be in front. Everything wants to be in the mask, in the front, so you can see your voice, right? And everything is lifting up like an elevator. Not dropping. Because if you drop, then you close off the back of your throat. Yeah. So everything is lifted. Harry used to always say, my teacher would always say, it's like a smile inside. You're always smiling. He knew Joan Sutherland, who was a famous opera singer that he worked with. And he said, she was amazing because everything was lifted. Yeah. And everything is lifted up behind your eyes. And it's for everything. I don't care what the genre is that you're singing. You have to do that. You have to have that. And then again, I was saying it was a full body experience, which I do in my lessons too, that you have resonators. So you got your whole body. So your voice is resonating in your chest, right, in your mouth, in your head. And it's a matter of all of those resonators going all the time. It really is a machine. It's a real machine that's it's almost like you have a car, like a generator going all the time. You can't stop the generator. You can't stop the breath control, low and slow, right? You want to keep everything below, no short, high breaths. So it's
you don't want to be singing
can't do that.
It's got to be from
diaphragm low, right? And simple. And so
then you don't run out of breath when you're doing that.
Well, yes. And everything really and truly is very simple when you think about vocal technique because it's an extension of what you do when you speak every day.
Right.
So it's a matter of kind of taking a look at what do you do?
Singing is speaking on
It's
pitch.
speaking on pitch, and that's really all it is.
Mhm.
Really, that's the big secret, folks. It's like you take a breath that will sustain. You have to have the machine work,
Yeah.
but that's really all it is. And so when I'll have people say, "Well, how do you breathe?" I said, "Well, let's talk. Let's
It's
talk
true.
and see,
Yeah.
right?" So if I said to you, "Hey, Nick, what'd you do today?" Do I go, "Hey, Nick, what'd you do today?" "Oh, did you have lunch?" Did you? No,
No.
I do what's called taking a breath from a breath.
Mhm.
Hey, Nick, what'd you do today? How was work? What did you have for lunch? I'm breathing in between, but you don't
Yeah.
see it. It's seamless,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I say. When you're singing, you're doing the same thing, only instead of it being a short thing, you're extending a note, you're extending a phrase, you're
Mhm.
extending all of that stuff. So I said, I've been teaching a long time, but really, taking your money for nothing because it's pretty simple. You just got to talk on pitch. So really, and again, just the audition situation and teaching people how to really seize an audition and be comfortable. And I think above all, I think the most important thing is having fun.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
just loving what you do. I mean, I'm somebody who loves to audition. I love to
Yeah.
because I like to go in and do my thing. And I hope they like it. If I'm not what they're looking for, I'm not what they're looking for.
Yeah. And
You know?
I'll say, as your son who's gone to an audition with you and sat outside,
Yeah.
I always hear the auditioners go like, "Wow," afterwards.
Well,
And but that doesn't. They can be impressed with
and I
you
won't
as a
get it.
performer, and you still don't get the
Yeah.
role
Oh, a million
because it's
times.
not the right role.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's an interesting lesson, I think.
I
Too.
think a lot of times, and this was from an early age with me too, like learning how to embrace who you are, whatever that is,
Yeah.
right? I have a funny story. When I was in college, they were doing The Sound of Music. And I thought, oh, I'm going to play Liesel in The Sound of Music. I really want to audition for this part. Now, I'm Italian. Okay. I had very dark, long hair at the
Mhm.
time. I always was kind of on the more exotic side. I wasn't like the real ingenue, like waif-like, blonde hair, blue eyes, kind of Procter and Gamble,
Mhm.
Austrian
Right. Right.
child that
Mhm.
they all were. And I tried to like be very simple. I had no makeup. I pulled my hair back. I tried to look very Austrian, very schoolgirl. I didn't get it because I was screaming, Italian.
Right. Yeah. You didn't.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't for me.
You looked like Rizzo. You didn't look
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
didn't
So,
look like
but
Liesel.
when you're doing that at an early age, you're like, well, what's wrong with me?
Right.
I sing well. Well, it's not that. So you have to learn very quickly. For me, if they want tall, I ain't that.
Yeah.
If they want blonde, I ain't that.
Well, now,
But I'm just saying at
Yeah.
the time, you have to kind of embrace who you are
Yeah.
and know what your abilities are and know what you do. And you can't take anything personally. I mean, there are times where they cast roles because somebody left and they have to fit the costume. I mean, let's be honest,
Mm.
right? There's so many things out of your control.
Yeah.
There's one thing that's in your control. You being the best you can be with what you are and what you have,
Yeah.
and how you attack a role, and really it is the work that's put into it. As a layout artist, as an animator, people see your work, right? And they go, oh, wow, look, that must have been fun. And that's great. It's such tremendous work. I've watched you. One frame is like how long, right? And even to have to change something like that.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I love those cartoons. I'm like, they're not cartoons, they're animated features, as your mother. But again,
you.
I think it's like anything else. If you
Yeah.
go to the ballet and you watch ballerinas,
Right.
it's beautiful and effortless. And we watch the films and they're cohesive and you fall in love with the characters.
Yeah. If you love what you're doing,
It looks easy.
it looks easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
there's a lot of
usually it's still very hard, even if
it's
you
a
love what
lot
you
of
do.
work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's good work.
Mm-hmm.
It's joyful work.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I want them to be as well-rounded as possible
Yeah.
and prepared for anything. Prepared for absolutely anything.
Yeah.
I have a lot of choral students, so we deal a lot with choral competitions and vocal competitions. Years ago, I had 2 of my students go to American Idol in the
Yeah.
first 4 seasons, and they were both in the top 24. One was in the top 12. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to kind of look at each person and really give them what they need according to whatever they're auditioning for.
Yeah. Well, you can't say this, but I will
I-
say that you are the best vocal teacher on the planet. And
Thank you.
you have a legion of students who would attest to the same thing.
Thank you.
And you've helped so many people, and I know that they appreciate it because I've heard them say it to you many times. And what has it meant to you, though, to, after all, having such an amazing career yourself and continue to have an amazing career yourself,
Yeah.
but being able to then impart what you've learned on these students, what's that meant?
It is as rewarding as performing myself. Because when I see what they do and I see what they've achieved, it makes me so happy that I feel like I did something, could have been the smallest suggestion, that somehow changed their life in a positive way.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel, and I will tell you that one of the most beautiful times I've had as a teacher was I had my student Russell Copeland, if she's out there listening. She's a grown, beautiful woman, an actor in her own right. I think she was 12 when I started to teach her during Cats. And we worked for many, many, many years. And eventually she made her Broadway debut as Eponine on Broadway in Les Mis.
Wow.
And for me, that was probably the single most proudest moment as a teacher. And it was like for full circle for me because I was on Broadway and now I had this beautiful, incredibly talented student, actor, singer who I'm watching on Broadway. And I was like, oh my God.
Right.
And she was
from 12.
From 12,
So
but
then,
she was in her what now at this point? It had to be her 20s, right?
Wow.
She was beautiful. And I remember sitting in the audience, and when she came out, her diction was so clear. And I was like, yes. So a lot of times, you'll hear people in a show and you won't hear be like, what were they singing?
Right.
I got every word. Her enunciation was beautiful.
Yeah.
I saw kind of the fruits of my labor that I imparted on her.
Yes.
But that, I will tell you, that was my that was my proudest moment as a teacher, being able to actually see somebody that I coached on Broadway in Les Mis.
Yeah.
As Eponine.
Oh my God.
I mean, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm a mother. I have you and your brother, and I have sons. And the feeling of being a coach as well is being a mother, is going back to that caretaker.
Yes, it is.
I really love all of my students. I feel personally connected to them because I want them to be the best they can be and get the most out of the work that we do.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being a proud mom and support, I'm a very proud son.
Oh.
And I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I love you so much.
I love you more.
And thank you so much for doing this. I'm getting teary. But
I know, me too. I love you.
Thank you for doing this. It's so amazing to hear you talk so passionately about what you love to do.
Yeah.
And I just loved talking to you and having this conversation and getting to talk to you in depth about your career,
Yeah.
which we've talked about all these stories
Yeah.
individually throughout
Yeah,
time,
you
but to
know 'em
hear it
all.
all together,
Yeah. I'm
you
crying too.
know,
It's okay.
yeah, to hear it all
Well,
together is just it's overwhelming, and it's just an amazing,
thank you. Well, thank you for
experience.
having me.
Yeah.
I love this. This is great. And, you know, you're doing a wonderful job. Your podcasts are fantastic.
Thank you.
They really
Thanks,
are.
Mom. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I have to be
Well,
a supportive mom. So,
I
yeah.
love you so
I
much.
love you.
Thank you for doing this.
Sure. My pleasure.
And thank you all for watching this special Mother's Day episode of Nick's Friends in Film, or Broadway. And please like, comment, and subscribe below. Thanks so much for watching, and join us next week for our next friend. Thanks so much. Bye.